I hate fun.
Before Season 1 of Diablo 4 even kicked off, the community, for the most part, came to a general consensus about the changes set to impact the game.
I actually just lost my hardcore character while trying to explain this to you. I changed my mind. I hate this season.
To be fair, that was kind of a meme, but yeah. Another great game. This game is so fucking bad.
Holy shit.
Yep.
Oh my god, it's so fucking bad.
Now, this isn't a new development for the Diablo franchise, or really for video gaming as a whole. More and more developers are seemingly at odds with the gamers they're being paid to develop for.
At the heart of Mass Effect Andromeda is a question. How far will we go?
What's this?
Oh my fucking god, what is wrong with your face?
It just seems they're getting out of touch.
Our modern world is an increasingly connected one. Our
Oh god. Here we go.
mobile devices keep us closer than ever to our friends, family, and loved ones.
And maybe
I feel bad for him in a way, but he did try to hoodwink us with you can't buy gear in Diablo Immortal. That was a little bit cheesy.
they don't want us to do the one thing we want to do when playing video games.
Oh.
Have fun.
My God. I was literally just talking how it's a rough day.
Does Activision Blizzard actively hate fun?
It's fine, boys. 2 seconds.
What gives? Why are video game publishers and developers seemingly not listening?
The people that are in charge of this game should be ashamed of themselves. This is a joke. The game is a joke. There are so many things that are badly programmed and just badly designed. How is it that you can fail at your job in so many tremendous and massive ways?
The answer to that question, in my personal opinion,
Okay, yeah, I'm curious to see why does this guy think it happens?
was set in motion more than 20 years ago. Now, before I get too deep into the why, let me give you a little background on who I am and why I came to this conclusion.
Normally during hurricane coverage, some common images are streets flooded and cities full of water.
Is that him?
But I don't know if you can see this, but the one place that there should be water is bone dry. I'm standing at the bottom of Lake Panier because northern winds are actually driving the water out of the lake.
My name is Alex Labat, and for more than 5 years, I worked in the television broadcast news industry. I was a news reporter, producer, anchor, you name it.
Cool.
This isn't meant as a humble brag, but more so to give you some context as to why I arrived at the conclusion that I did after doing some similar research the way I would have if telling a story for air. If you watch this video and find yourself reaching the same conclusions that I did, just do me a favor. Like the video, consider subscribing, and let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do more of these types of videos in the future.
All right, let's see it.
And now we get back to the heart of the matter, or actually kind of the lack thereof. What if I told you that the decisions these major publishers are making could technically be traced back through companies, buyouts, organizations, mergers, acquisitions, through teams and decisions, all back to one person? Now, I'm going to preface this by saying,
I don't know. I don't know. One guy caused this to happen? I don't think so, man.
this is not an attack on this person's character, jobs, decisions, anything like that. This is just my hypothesis as to the state of the gaming industry, and by no means am I advocating on contacting this person, attacking this person's character, or doing anything that would or could get you in trouble. I cannot believe I have to say this, but developers receiving death threats is asinine and childish. So whatever you do...
Yeah, if you go and attack, like, this is the same thing with anything else, right? It's like, there's always people that are, like, ready to go to war for, like, you know, my favorite content creator doesn't like you, so I'm going to send you mean messages. It's the most cringe shit, man.
Don't do it. Now, let's move on. Well, by taking a step back, all the way back to the year 2001.
Okay.
This
bad for
is the crucible moment.
Jack and Daxter.
This is the year that everything changed.
Turn the
TV, they hit the Pentagon! They hit the fucking Pentagon!
Jesus. No. Okay. Yeah. It's 2001, but no.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
We're not
I remember
talking about
that.
Jesus.
Yeah, that
We
was
are
a bad
talking
day.
about this. An article published on April 27th, 2001, entitled Behavioral Game Design. It's a 17-minute read, but the crux of it is this. It utilizes the language of behavioral psychology to explain why players react to video games in a certain way and what about the games makes them rewarding. To quote the article, quote, psychology can offer a framework and a vocabulary.
I already kind of disagree with this. I'll explain why, but I want to let him make his point.
For understanding what we are already telling our players. Referencing experiments by B.F. Skinner with rats and defining terms like reinforcer, contingency, and response, this article would stand as a watershed moment for then behavioral psychology graduate student John Hobson. It would be this article that would get Hobson seen by Microsoft's Games User Research Group.
Is this the guy?
After would land him a job working behind the scenes on games like Halo. Here's an excerpt from Hobson's book, The Secret Science of Games. My job is to make games more fun. Not all games have to be fun, of course, but the ones I've worked on are popular entertainment. On blockbuster titles like Halo, Age of Empires, Destiny, World of Warcraft, and Hearthstone, my personal contribution has been to help the development team understand when players are having...
Okay, I'll pause right here, and I want to go ahead and share some thoughts on what he's said so far, especially the premise is that this article or this research paper was the turning point for video games. I think that there's a very evident and very obvious example of that not being true, which is Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2, we watched a video on this, had the entire game programmed in the back end to drip feed you success and then give you a variable reinforcement schedule of allowing you to fight an easier version of the AI after you put more coins in. So I don't think that this is necessarily true as a turning point, because I think that arcade games actually utilized more of this psychology than games in the 90s did. So I don't think that's true. And I also think that in terms of making games more fun, yes, of course, there's going to be variable reinforcement, systems, right? Skinner box systems, but Skinner box systems and only 6 minutes. Not true? Well, no, this person codified it and defined it. I would say, yeah, sure. But watch the damn video. Keep watching? Well, wait a minute. What do I have? I'm going to keep watching. Yeah, but I thought that he said that this was the turning point, right? The guy said that this was the turning point and this is why it's happened. He did say that in the beginning of the video, did he not? He said that. Okay, so he said that. And then whenever you provide, I was going to use Mortal Kombat 2, number 1. Number 2 is going to be Dungeons & Dragons. The reason why Dungeons & Dragons was very popular was their utilization of the rolling dice and the random occurrences and the critical hits, critical misses, etc. system, which is fundamentally random design. So Dungeons & Dragons was actually what implemented RNG. It had nothing to do with 2001 at all. At that point, it had been in gaming for 30 years. So I'm just saying that both of these things indicate that this type of design predated 2001 in a tremendous way by over 10 years. That's all I'm saying. Dungeons & Dragons isn't cards, and a lot of video games, especially early games, fantasy games, were basically built off of Dungeons & Dragons. So right here, if you look at this, they're just giving examples of randomness in video games and how it's designed, and they're using examples like Doom, which is before 2001, Pitfall before 2001. What's this one here? NES Dragon. I've never played this one before. I'm not sure. So there are a number of other games that have utilized technology like this beforehand.
Fun. Fun is one of those dense little words like love that provoke a lot of debate about their precise definition.
Okay.
Everyone's got an opinion, and people talking about fun get into arguments using big...
Sorry, I apologize again. But the issue is not only with RNG, he's talking about fun. Well, whenever you use an article that's predicated on using psychology in video games, and then you say this is the genesis of a divergence between video game design, and then you provide examples of that divergence that predate the article, that means that the article didn't cause the divergence. That's just like it's simple logic. That's all I'm saying. Like, how are people not understanding this?
Big impressive concepts like immersion, flow, and autonomy. Smart people have written scholarly books on fun, subdivided it into categories, and tried to copyright their personal formulations. Those debates can be interesting to read, but I've worked on a lot of great games, and my definition of fun is extremely simple. Fun is whatever the designer and player agree is fun.
I actually think that's a great point, and I think he's totally right. Like, that's actually a really good insight. That's smart.
Anywa says, question, why did you guys increase the cast time on stuff like leaving dungeons? Feels like you're trying to slow down the game by making us waste time for something that might feel useless.
In Hobson's eyes, games aren't just a solitary creation of a lone designer. They're a conversation between the designer and the player.
Yeah.
A game becomes fun when a designer creates an experience that aligns with the player's expectations and enjoyment. This perspective formed the foundation of Hobson's work at Microsoft's Games User Research Group. His role was...
And again, keep in mind that a lot of these things were the case even back in the day. Of course, places like Nintendo and Atari took feedback from games, right? Even back then. But yeah, of course, it's much different now because it's iterative. And it's like hotfix, live service, real-time iterative.
Analyze player behavior and feedback, and then communicate these insights to the game developers. His goal was not to dictate the direction of the game's design, but to provide data that would help designers make, quote, more informed decisions. Now, why am I so focused on a guy that worked for Microsoft and Bungie in a video about Diablo 4? In 2010, Hobson would become head of research at Bungie, becoming a pivotal figure in the development of Destiny. Do you know what else happened in 2010? That's right. Bungie strikes a 10-year deal. With who, you might ask? Oh, Activision Blizzard.
Wait, really?
Hobson is on the ground floor as Destiny takes off.
Yeah.
His tenure at Bungie lasts from 2010 until 2016.
I forgot about that whole...
The first Destiny launches in September of 2014, and from that point forward, there are some players that have not put the game down since. Why? Hobson actually goes into detail about why in this game developers conference presentation from 2015.
Okay, why is that?
Simply titled User Research in Destiny, this hour-long presentation summarizes not only the entire philosophy and psychology of the game of Destiny, you can extrapolate what Hobson is saying across almost the entire gaming industry when it comes to games like live service games.
Okay.
I'm going to play you some select segments from this presentation, but I will link the full video in the description so you can see for yourself.
So is his argument, I'm not sure. I think his argument might actually be that this guy didn't actually, like, it wasn't the article about how the psychology affected games. It was more the article and how it, like, I guess how it gave people the tools to create research data and then use the research data to create fun. Which I think that's, maybe that's true. I'd have to think about that.
Just how much of an impact this presentation from 2015 has on the gaming industry as we know it today.
We started thinking that actually we really want to encourage people to play not just the right activity for their mood, but also to play a variety of activities and to not specialize too much. And this was connected in our heads to the idea of the buffet effect from psychology. The idea that if you have one flavor of food, like a giant bowl of like white rice, you'll feel full and you'll get sick of it sooner than if you have 5 flavors or 10 flavors out in front of you. And so that's why when you go to a buffet, you always end up eating too much. And other games have done this sort of thing before. They've deliberately set out to encourage omnivores. So if you play Hearthstone, which I do too much.
This is also a big reason. It said this guy worked on WoW. This is, I think, one of the biggest reasons why WoW is successful, and it's another reason why Path of Exile retains players better than Diablo. Because in Path of Exile, I'll use that as an example, and then I'll talk about WoW, is that in Path of Exile, there are a lot of different ways to play PoE. Like, for example, you're able to delve, you're able to do maps, you're able to do delirium maps, which are very different. You're able to do bossing, you're able to do like lab runs, you're able to do all kinds of other different types of like niche activities in the game that are fundamentally different gameplay and have a different meta than just playing maps constantly, heists, weird builds, stuff like that, right? So all of those things together provide the player, whenever the player is tired of playing one type of gameplay, they don't have to change game, they just have to change gameplay. And I think with World of Warcraft, that's even more the case. And it's also the reason why Final Fantasy is very successful too. And I think it's also the reason why Lost Ark is less successful. Because most content and most gameplay in Lost Ark is built around doing big numbers and doing big damage. And there's not a lot of secondary activities in the game that are really transformative based off of what the game fundamentally is. But if you compare that to Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft, you have freeholds. You have, is it called freehold? Like whatever the Final Fantasy housing system is. You have the Final Fantasy housing. You have garrisons. You have pet battles. You have PvP. You have PvE. You have raids. You have soloing. You have farming reputations. You have let's see, doing time walking. You have doing Mythic Plus. You have doing Battlegrounds. And so there are so many other types of ways to play these types of games that whenever somebody gets tired of playing one game, they don't have to change games. They just have to change the menu. And that's why a lot of people stick around in World of Warcraft and these MMOs. And that's why they create professions is another huge factor. That's why they create a lot of these other types of activities, is because it retains player base. I think this guy, if this is what he's saying here, I think it is. He is 110% right.
They have their daily quest where they tell you, well, they say, okay, we're going to give you extra gold if you play this class you don't normally play. And so maybe you never play a priest deck, but you have a daily quest for it, and okay, yeah, I'll go look it up. I'll go look up a priest deck and give it a shot. And that way, if your other deck that you normally play stops working, well, you had that priest deck you'd played yesterday. Man, maybe I'll play that instead. It's like if you only play cooperatively with your friend online and your friend stops playing, you probably stop playing too. Even if you're playing a warlock in Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing with WoW.
We'll drop gear for other classes to give you a little nudge towards trying another character. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, I don't normally play a Titan, but hey, I got this really cool helmet. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Please make no mistake, this kind of testing that I'm showing here was the majority of what we did on Destiny. It was very straightforward user research where it's, can people progress through the game overall, and what does their progression curve look like, and how does is each piece of content working the way we think it should be working? Another topic we did research on was class regret. So, like all RPGs, we ask players up front to choose what class they want to play.
Sure.
And it's really stupid because we ask people to make that class choice at that moment, where they know the least about the game. Yeah. And we ask them to make a choice that's then going to affect the rest of their play for the entire experience. And we're setting them up for failure by asking them to do it that early, but that's when you have to make the choice.
You're setting them up to buy a boost. You're not setting them up to failure.
Great things about the modern age is that everything is on YouTube and Twitch. So if you can find some strange play style in the data, somebody out there has put it online for you to watch. And you can tell he is reading the tooltip. That just saying pressing button X dismantles the gear clearly isn't enough to prevent him from doing it. And so we actually ended up adding a safety mechanism that you don't just have to tap a button to dismantle your gear in Destiny. You have to press and hold the button, and the more valuable the piece of gear, the longer you have to hold it.
See, that's smart, because the reason why it's smart is because, I guess you probably should be able to see the guy. The reason why it's smart is because the players aren't. Players are stupid. And if you give them a button to delete the important item, they're going to delete the important item. It's what happens. Like, I've heard game developers, I've talked to them, and they've said that their players are so stupid. Like, they can't even believe it. It's astonishing to watch the kind of dumb shit people will do. But there it is.
Dismantle it. So if you have an exotic and you want to dismantle it, it actually takes a long time to fully destroy it. And so just a personal anecdote on this, like the first time I got in a legendary in an internal build, I did this. I accidentally dismantled it.
Oops.
Because we didn't have any safeguards.
Oops.
And I was so angry. I was ready to go over and punch somebody on the UI team.
Smart.
And at the same time, though, it struck me that this meant the game was working. That little pixel gun that I'd just gotten, I was so happy to have it, and I was so invested in that virtual gun that I was so angry that I wanted to go over and hit somebody.
True.
And so I had this great moment of, oh, we're screwing up, but oh, that worked.
True.
This presentation was delivered in early 2015. What else was delivered in 2015?
Welcome to the World of Warcraft feature preview for the new WoW token system coming in patch 6.1.2.
Oh, look at that. It's the WoW token.
That's true. Yeah, it's halfway through. Yeah, I was just thinking, yeah, that's halfway through Warlords of Draenor. Yeah, this was towards the end of Warlords of Draenor. Okay.
And what else was released in 2015?
Hello again, Guardian.
Oh, look at that. It's the Eververse store in Destiny. Bungie, Blizzard, these companies were able to take what they learned about the psychology behind what drives a player to play these games and to monetize it. But what happens?
I mean, I don't know if I agree with that connection. I mean, do you really need to have I think that the difference was that players had changed the way that they had viewed games, because in 2015 we had about 10 years of not 10 years, 5 years of mobile game monetization. And at that point, people were much more friendly towards monetization in video games versus in 2005 or whatever, whenever they had the Oblivion horse. Basically, players and people's experiences with microtransactions, I think that they've become more and more accepting of it over time. So Blizzard at a certain point thought, this is time. I think enough people are going to be okay with this, and we're going to let people buy gold. And I think that's really the reason why they added the WoW token. And I think that's the reason why a lot of these games added it. It's the same reason that now a lot of games are implementing gacha mechanics, because there have been breakout games in the Western audience that utilize gacha mechanics and aren't universally hated. I think Genshin Impact was a tremendous big breakthrough for pay to win and gacha games. And I think Honkai Star Rail is, just another kind of proof of that concept. So yeah, I think that it's more, and also you have to remember, with monetization in games, you're burning the candle at both ends, because you have the older players who are either leaving gaming or now they have enough money to pay to win, so they don't think that it's as problematic. And you also have younger gamers that are coming into the gaming audience who have been brought up on mobile games, brought up with pay to win, and brought up with microtransactions, and they've never known anything different. So whenever you take those two groups of people, the people in the middle who grew up in the golden age of 90s and 2000s gaming, that group just gets smaller every year. And it's not just that gaming is worse. I have friends of mine, I have a friend, his name's Hayden, and he's actually mainly Zach's friend, and Hayden doesn't really play as many video games as he used to nowadays. Why does he not do that? It's not because he hates video games. It's because he's a fucking manager at a department store. He's got a wife and 3 kids. He just doesn't have as much time to play video games at age 32 that he did whenever he was 21. That's life. And that's what I'm talking about, burning the candle at both ends, is that you are going to have gaming and gamers, because back in the 2000s, most people that played video games were a much more strict demographic than there are now. The demographic of gaming has gotten larger as well. And also I think that with the demographic of gaming growing larger, that's made people's acceptance of microtransactions more prevalent, because real life is pay to win. So it would make sense with people that have more experience with real life would be more okay with pay to win, because it's what they're used to.
When you apply this mindset, not to a game that already exists, but a game that's just whispers and rumors.
Yeah.
Right around the time Destiny launches in 2014, Diablo 3 is undergoing a tumultuous dismount.
No,
The
this
teams
is like
working
the
on
original
Project
stuff. Yeah, it's
Hades,
2008
the next
footage.
iteration of Diablo, have the project scrapped. Team 3, the team behind Diablo 3, breaks up in 2014. Fast forward to 2016, teams at Blizzard begin working on not one, but 2 Diablo games, Diablo 4 and Diablo Immortal. And who just so happens to take over as Senior User Research Manager for Blizzard at the end of 2016?
I'm back, baby.
The one and only. John Hobson takes over as Senior User Research Manager in December of 2016. His current resume reads, quote, I founded and managed the game's user research team at Blizzard Entertainment, the studio behind Hearthstone, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, and Diablo. I oversaw research to benefit AAA mobile, console, and PC games in all stages of development, using a variety of qualitative and quantitative methods, including usability, playtest, focus groups, targeted surveys, and analytics. I coordinated relationships with over 40 distinct partner teams, many of which had never worked with a user research team before, building the relationships necessary to create a data-focused organization. I partnered directly with studio leadership to provide the data they need.
I really I don't have a lot of, like, how many people express what their duties are on a resume differently than what they actually were? Yeah. And also, like, this guy only worked there. What, is he still working there? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Where's the rest of this here? Fuck.
Hobson takes over as
activity
Senior User Research.
Whoa, hold up. What was this? Yeah, he works at NCSoft. I think, sure, maybe there's like some degree of like this guy having a negative impact on the way that the games are designed. But this dude left the company 5 years ago. Think about that. 5 years ago, he left the company, and we're going to blame him? I don't think so.
Analytics. I coordinated relationships.
He did the damage and left? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, what's the logic in that? So this guy comes into, like, so he planned it. So what's the logic that this guy came in? Because, let's see, Senior User Research Manager, like, obviously, like, Warlords of Draenor had a lot of garbage in it as well. Legion was being developed since before, Legion was developed, didn't Legion get released in September of 2016? And Legion had more RNG than any expansion ever. So he clearly didn't have anything to do with that because he didn't work at the company. And then if the logic is that, oh, well, he had this lasting impact and this legacy on the company, well, then how can you use that as an argument whenever at the same time you're implying that the person before him didn't do that and the person after him also didn't do that? This is like such a massive assumption to make. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is huge, especially whenever problems with the company predate his employment. I just don't think. Founded it? Yeah, but they clearly, like, I founded and managed games user research team. I'm sure that they had something similar to this before then. It's not like they didn't have any user research. Do you really think that Blizzard didn't have any user research before 2016? Of course they did.
With over 40 distinct partner teams, many of which had never worked with a user research team before, building the relationships necessary to create a data-focused organization. I partnered directly with studio leadership to provide the data they needed to make decisions faster with higher confidence. Hobson's tenure would last from December of 2016 to September of 2018 at Blizzard. Do you remember what games were released during this period? Or were even in development? Look, at the end of the day, all this boils down to is one thing. Data. Do I believe that John Hobson...
What games were released in this period? BFA. I think BFA was released in that period, and a few months after he was... before he was hired, Legion was released. Overwatch? Yeah, it must have just been Overwatch, right?
Is solely responsible for the state that Diablo 4 is in.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to excuse the pun, but hell no. But what I do think is that video game companies have taken Hobson's methodology and twisted it to meet their needs and bottom lines. After all, Hobson would leave his role at Blizzard in September of 2018, 2 months before this.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out of season?
Oh, God.
He's an April Fool's joke.
No.
I will never forget him making the tweet, played Diablo Immortal. It was exactly what I thought it was. I quit the game.
It's a fully
Whenever it came out.
fully fledged Diablo experience on mobile, which everybody will get to play, and hopefully which will bring new heroes to Sanctuary, as well as welcoming our community back into it, and something we're very excited about.
We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
This whole video can be summed up.
I think that if you really ask the people that work at the Diablo team, I think that the reason why they didn't announce Diablo 4 at that time is because it just wasn't ready. That's really the reason. The game wasn't ready, and they didn't have it out. Like, I personally, this is my opinion, okay? Is it still not ready? Well, look, they're going to fix it whenever the first expansion comes out, right? They're going to fix it. It's going to be fine. And anyway, so the first expansion is, the first expansion is going to fix the game. Yeah, over a year? No, 2 years. And I feel like when did Elder Scrolls 5 get announced? What year did that happen? It was like 2009, 2016. Wait, there's no way. Like, well, I mean, like, I love... No, not Skyrim. The one after that. The new one that they haven't released. Sorry. The one after... When did they announce that the game was coming out? 2017. I think, this is my opinion, I think that Blizzard probably intended to do exactly what Bethesda did. I think that they were going to announce Diablo 4 and Diablo Immortal at the same time, and the Diablo 4 announcement got pushed, and they got sat out there, and they looked like idiots because they saw how well the mobile game reception for the Elder Scrolls was, because it was kind of masked by the fact that they were adding in the new big game. Like, you think about it, right? Like, all of these companies, and also, like, does it really take this guy that worked at Bungie, does it really take this person's insight to come up with the idea of making a mobile game? I don't really think so. I mean, did he work at Bethesda whenever they did the same thing? Did he work at all these other companies whenever they did all of the same things? Come on. Like, I think that this is just the way that the market was heading. And you can look at just consumer trends and everything. This person is just simply riding the wave. They're not causing the wave.
Up in this. It seems like what's happened is that data now means more than the player that represents it. You aren't seen as an individual.
Data means more than the player that represents it. Oh, true. Like, I completely agree with that. Yes, absolutely. He's completely right.
Holding a controller or sitting in Discord waiting for your friends to hop in a voice channel so you can run dungeons.
Most of the stuff over here. Smile for a snapshot there. Oh my god. That was great.
What is it? Did I just plug into this? Yeah, you just plug in. It's like back
yeah,
in the
just
future.
keep on going up. Just keep on going up.
What was this, Halo 2 LAN party?
You are the equivalent to the ones and zeros that make up the games that are being sold to you. You are just data. I got the idea for this video because while researching Mr. Hobson, I came across this article. Here's an excerpt from this game industry article.
Why I don't applying fun scores to games. Here's why the practice needs to change. Okay.
Entitled, Why I Hate Fun. Quote, people keep playing or quit based on their current experience right now. We have to earn every second of ongoing player time, moment by moment.
Yeah.
A game can be good overall while still having giant potholes in the player journey. It gets better later is cold comfort to a player who is not having fun now. It's this genuine attitude that I believe is being warped by much of the game industry. Time is the ultimate factor. Time is money. The more time you spend with a game, the more fun you must be having.
Well, I mean, like, look at Shadowlands. I think the best example of Blizzard utilizing this type of research is Shadowlands. Like, you just have to do a bunch of annoying farms and stuff like that. It is just nuts, man. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely what it is that they look at the amount of time that players spend on something, and then they just apply that to how much people like it. Yeah, Renown, I think, is probably another one. And that's the problem, is that, like, these, and also, oh, by the way, I don't think John has anything to do with that. Because keep in mind that Smilegate, Koreans, okay, Koreans are doing the exact same thing with Lost Ark. You even heard Gold River referencing multiple times in the emergency live stream for Lost Ark that, like, the amount of player data and how players were doing things. So they are also designing off of a spreadsheet. They are also designing off of analytics. And the issue is that it's not that the analytics aren't useful. It's that the analytics are not the whole picture. It's that you have to the problem is that the developers have the analytics, but they don't have the critical insight into the analytics to discern what those analytics mean. That's what the problem is. They're able to see players like this, but why do they like it? Or why are the numbers very high? That's what the issue is.
Right? I mean, that is what the data says. But when the guy whose work helped inspire the Xbox Live achievement system is immune to those very same achievements, you have to ask yourself one question. What am I letting video games do to my psychology?
True.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, again, please, I ask you.
True, and this is the cuck gameplay, where people are constantly playing a video game, getting cucked over and over and over and over. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I don't know why people do it. People just constantly play video games that they fucking hate. Like, I cannot imagine a person's life. They wake up in the morning, they didn't get enough sleep, they drive a car they hate to a job they hate with people that they don't like and a boss that they resent and pay that sucks. They finally finish, and then they have lunch that they don't like. Then they go back to work and do the rest of their shitty job. They come home in traffic they hate. They finally get home. They get on the computer. They check Twitter and look at what all the things of people that they said. Let's see all the people that said something that I don't like. Let's see what they said today so I know what to get mad about. Okay, now let's turn on the news and find out what to get mad about. Okay, thank God. Now for some entertainment. Let's play a video game that makes me mad 90% of the time, and then I'm going to play that video game really late at night until I have to go to bed, and then I'm going to lose sleep at my job tomorrow and do the exact thing over again. Like, what kind of a fucking life is this? I don't understand it. It's like people are, like, addicted to putting their dick on an anvil and hammering it. What are they doing? Like, what's wrong with you? I don't understand this. It's insane. Like, what's wrong with people? They're going insane. It's literally most people. Yes, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't fucking have to be.
Like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you have a subject that you'd like me to do a video on, or if you'd like me to do more videos like this in the future. Again, my name is Labot. This has been a pleasure. I'll see you online. Bye, guys.
I think this is a pretty decent video. I do disagree that the itemization of time metrics is something that is an outcome of this person. I actually think that it's something of an outcome of the itemization of time. And the funny thing about this is that my dad did this professionally as a consultant, for many years. After he retired, he used to be an executive of a publishing company. He basically retired, and then they fucking hired him as a consultant and paid him more money than he was getting at the company. I don't, it's like, what a fucking scam. Meanwhile, they're paying him also his pension or his retirement plan. So he's getting paid tons of money to do this. And effectively what he did, and this is also what I was getting a degree in college for, is effectively systems analysis, process analysis. And process analysis is fundamentally just itemizing a process down to each individual time increment that it takes, and then min-maxing each of those increments into the most efficient way, and then turning that into a repeatable process that can be then spread outward for everybody else. So yeah, it's automation, but you still have to deal with people. And it's one of the reasons why, by the way, because I was always really into this myself, why I was very good at making gold guides back in the day, is because that's the way I would think about them. That's why my gold guides were so successful, is because I would itemize time going to vendor, time going to dungeon, time going from running back, etc., right? So all of these things I would do a lot. And anyway, the point is that this was something that he was having to deal with even whenever he was working at a company. This is like the 2000s and the 90s, is that they would hire people that were completely outside of the industry that would itemize time, and then the way that they itemized the time, they didn't know enough about the time that they were itemizing and the processes that they were putting into the, like a different chart, that they would itemize things that wouldn't make sense, and it would cause massive problems. And let me ask you a question as well. For all of you guys that have been working for, I'd say like over 10 years, maybe, let's say you're working in general. How many of you have a quantitative scoring system at your job? A KPI, yeah, a key performance indicator, by the way. Yeah, metrics. Some do. I'm unemployed. I'm my own boss. Yeah, it's a little bit different. KPIs are old. Yeah. We do this in cattle industry. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that itemization of time and processes is something that is extremely common. And also, itemization of time and processes is one of those things that whenever it's applied productively and successfully, you can look. Another example of that is Yoshi P actually did this with making Final Fantasy XIV, because if you watch the No Clip documentary, he talked about how he itemized down how people were doing things, and he figured out the scheduling for making the game come out and be processed and made at a reasonable time. And he talked about that actually for like 10 minutes. So I think that itemization of time and process analysis in that way, I think is a very good fundamentally thing. But again, as with all tools, they can also be used as weapons. So what ends up happening is that people who are trying to use this tool end up turning a job into a video game. And so people are no longer trying to perform well at their job, they're trying to hit their KPIs. And this is something that was leaked from, obviously, Blizzard GMs for servicing tickets. And also, let me ask you guys, again, for those of you all who have KPIs and different types of performance indicators, how many of you guys care more about hitting those indicators than doing your job well? No shit. Yeah, exactly. Of course. It's common sense, because you want to keep your job. It was the same thing at the IRS. Everybody knows the government does a 1 through 5 system. Basically, 3 is good, 4 is incredible, 5 is just like you're a wizard, right? And guess what happens? A lot of the people, we didn't really have this problem in my department, because we didn't really have to do a lot of analytical decision making. But in my dad's department, they did. And there would be tons of people who would seemingly never find a fraudulent document. And the reason why is because the process of going through and marking a fraudulent document takes 6 minutes, and the process of doing a normal document takes 1. So if you're trying to hit your metrics, if you find a fraudulent document, it is actively in your worst interest to report it. That's what happens. And I think this is what happens with games as well. And there's all of these metrics, and it happens with everything. I don't think that it's fair to blame John here for what he was doing or saying, especially whenever, in his own words, everything that he was saying in this post here was incredibly articulate and completely accurate in a way that I haven't heard a lot of developers talk about really ever. So I actually am not going to blame him for any of this kind of stuff. And also, I think that the problems and the rot with Blizzard occurred before he was employed in September. I think that's what he said. No, it was December of 2016. At that point, Legion was already released. At that point, I think Overwatch had already been released. So a lot of the games that people are blaming him for, they had already been released. And the truth is, he worked there for less than 2 years. He worked there for 1 year and 10 months. I don't think that's enough time for a person like him to have completely just changed the entire culture of the company. I think that this is something that was happening not only industry-wide with video games, as I mentioned, like with Smilegate using analytics for Lost Ark just recently in an interview, or the emergency broadcast. I think it's something that's happening in corporate culture in general. So I think this is definitely a very, like, I like this video a lot because it's interesting, it's well-researched, and it actually provides data. Like, data and information to talk about. I like this a lot. This guy only has 1.5k subs. I'm going to give him a sub. I'll link you guys the video if you like the video. Chose not to listen to video. He was saying they used his philosophy to warp shit. Later, he's not blaming him. So you're saying that they used his philosophy to warp things, but they're not blaming him? I feel like that's the same thing. You're attributing his actions. Oh, he's in chat. Yo, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for making this video. These are fucking great. Please make more. Yeah, that's it. I have a good example of KPIs and vanity metrics that I use at Blizzard and WoW for an example. You've only write it up real quick. It involves LFR. You don't even need to. Like, I will... Like... I will imagine that it's even dumber than what I can imagine. I summed up thesis of my video about... Oh, yeah, this is what he said. He's in chat. I'm going to go ahead and read it real quick. Summed up thesis of my video better than I could. I thought behind this is basically this guy's work with analytics touched a lot of the live service industry. I think that you could be right that his analytical approach to it was the first time that it may have come into gaming. I don't know. Personally, I think that it was probably the first time that it came into PC gaming. Because I know that mobile games work like this and have always worked like this. And they've even used emotional psychology manipulation that many games nowadays still don't do that are PC-based games. Holding your breath in time, I know I've got room to improve. No, you did great, man. Like, it was really good. Thank you very much. I appreciate the video. These are amazing. Please keep making more of them. Yeah, I mean, especially from like a, person with a broadcasting background. I think it's a different perspective and a different way of having the information presented. So yeah, thanks a lot, man. Timed out. We have a anti-paragraph rule because if we don't, it's all we're gonna get is paragraphs. That's it. Free-to-play games started out in the late 90s, targeting children. Yeah, sure. I think it's very common. Korean MMO's done it since 2002 with Ragnarok Online. Yeah, Dylan used to play Ragnarok Online a lot. He was super into it. So yeah, Korean games microtransactions had pay to win since the late 90s. Yeah, I think MapleStory was a forerunner there. But yeah, overall, fuck.